sometimes in this crazy world to make a difference, right? I mean, we volunteer, we phone bank, we text bank, we do whatever it is for whatever side you're on, you do what you can to make a difference. And sometimes it feels like you're not getting anywhere. I feel so deeply that this business, like setting kids up at 6 months old with exposure to everything, to all of this wonderful culture, these rich foods, these wonderful humans that cook the food, there's no doubt that is going to help foster these little human like go-getters and these little citizens with great open minds who embrace the world instead of cutting it out or thinking less than others. So there's just so much there when it comes to food. It's not just something you eat. Food, there's so much more to food than just eating.
That is Erica Bethe Levin. I'm Amy Guth, and this is Unconventional, the podcast about people who are doing things very much their own way. I'm joined by entrepreneur and food industry expert Erica Bethe Levin. She is founder and CEO of GloBowl, a revolutionary, internationally influenced food company for babies and toddlers. GloBowl is all about getting kids to love, respect, and embrace the flavors of the world and hopefully help little ones grow into more culturally curious adults. But her background is pretty interesting too. So before GloBowl, she broke all kinds of records as director of global sales for Coyle Hospitality, and she was one of the first people hired to launch and run the Chicago market for venture-backed Reserve. And she was selected as one of the very first female founders at 1871, Chicago's largest tech hub and incubator, where she launched Cheeky Chicago. She's also on the executive board of Northwestern University's Council of 100, a cohort of top-tier graduates selected to mentor female students and alumni. I love everything that I just read.
Thank you. That was a great intro. I was blushing. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we could do this. So talk to me a little bit about your relationship as an entrepreneur to unconventionality and how you've made it work for you. And then we'll get into GloBowl.
Sure. Unconventionality. I think a lot of my career and my background has been somewhat unconventional. If you look at the fact that, in 2012, when I was at 1871, I was the first female founder, just being a woman in the room, maybe the only woman in the room a lot of times. It's unconventional. I spend my life commuting between two different places because launching my business in Chicago is extremely important to me. But my family and I live at a different place right now. They're in school in Florida. So it's kind of unconventional to be on a plane every other week. But in general, I just think, getting into this kind of venture-backed, investor-backed world as a woman, it's challenging, but also I have seen it from 2008 when I started the company till now, which is, good 16 years. I can't do the math. So things have definitely changed. I definitely see more women doing it now. And what I really love seeing is the camaraderie of women that are doing what I'm doing, not necessarily in the same space, but just women that are in the boardroom, raising money, founders of companies, CEOs of companies, and really seeing this incredible just unity and ability to kind of lift each other up and support each other. And I've been really happy to see that and see it grow over these last, decade plus.
That representation is so very important. I mean, there's so many horror stories from female founders and women trying to raise money of getting treated a totally different way than their male colleagues, of being asked if you can handle that kind of investment. Or, I've even heard of female entrepreneurs who may or may not be based right here in Chicago who had to bring her husband to a pitch meeting just so she would be taken seriously. So that kind of representation is not a small thing. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah. And I, having investors, and I have to be honest, it hasn't happened this time around, but the first time, asking about, personal things that don't matter in business, about kids or marriage or anything that should not play into a pitch meeting. Right. So, I'm sensing less of that these days, which is a blessing, and it's a good thing, and it should always be that way. But I don't think it always was.
Not at all. All right. So tell me about GloBowl.
Okay, so it's an internationally influenced baby food company. So we're exposing babies and toddlers to culture through food from their very first bites. So babies have really what's called a flavor window between 4 and 18 months of age, where we can most easily manipulate their palate. So we can expose them early to all these wonderful flavors and spices and textures and have much more of a chance of them embracing it than if we were to test the waters a little bit later on. We're also exposing kids to allergens. I mean, the reportings, it's all science backed, and the research shows that early exposure to allergens actually helps to stave off allergies. And then just in general, parents don't want picky kids. They don't want picky eaters. They want to go to the Indian restaurant down the street and know that their kids are going to enjoy it. But really, it's about bringing the world to kids through food. And especially, as we all know, over the last 2 years where we've been holed up more or less. I mean, things are opening a little bit more. But at a time when we were completely quarantined and chained to our homes, I didn't know another way to bring the world to my kids. I didn't know when I would be able to take them out of this house or out of this state or out of this country. And so to expose them to other parts of the world in a way that I know how, like food, to me sounded wonderful. And it sounded like something other parents might want as well. And so that's really where the idea came from. And what I will say is with my son, as a first-time mom, super nervous to give him flavor, texture, spice, or allergens or anything, even though the pediatrician said to. And I will say he's a very picky eater, and it's relatively heartbreaking for me and my husband, who are both very passionate food people, have both made careers in food. And so with our daughter, we also said, she's eating whatever we're eating. We're not having another picky eater. And so, like I said, during the pandemic, I gave her, it's still the pandemic, but during the time of quarantine, I gave her coconut curry as legitimately one of her very first foods, and just followed that up with other really unique flavors. She had a saffron pasta that same week. She had a pesto that I made, which is, full of garlic, and it's just pungent, and she loves it all. And 2.5 years later, she's still eating it all. So I know anecdotally that early exposure works. So here we are. And there's no other baby food out there that's actually international flavors.
I think that's so interesting because I'm all about challenging narratives. And I think we get attached to a dominant narrative that kids don't like vegetables, kids don't like spices, the end. But in fact, I love this notion of exposing them and this science-backed idea of them having this little flavor window. That's so fascinating.
It really, it is all backed in science for sure. But think about it, at 4 months or 6 months, let's say, that's a little bit more of a traditional time to start feeding your kids real food. They've only had breast milk or formula until then. You think that if you give them, cilantro or pesto or something, it's not going to taste good? Of course it is. It's unique. It's new. It might take a few times, but there's no reason that they need to be eating, completely unseasoned, unsalted, mushed up food. It doesn't need to be that way.
And I really love kind of this bigger idea that it's not just about not raising a picky eater, but maybe in this one way contributing to raising adults that have less of a sense of what is considered other.
I mean, kids are not born with a single notion in their head as to what other even is, right? So if you're exposing them to different cultures and you're explaining it to them and you're saying, okay, this comes from this part of the world, this comes from this part of the world, they don't know any differently. So part of GloBowl is also educational. On the back of every single one of our jars is a QR code that mom or dad can scan, and it opens, a window to the world where it's a video and it shows, okay, why is tikka masala important in Indian cuisine, right? Where are the vegetables grown for it? Why is it culturally relevant? And there's a video of a little boy in India that's eating the same exact food as my son, but looks different, or their skin tone is different, right? So food really is this universal unifier. And there's no doubt that when you're exposing kids early to other parts of the world, that you're not helping them become more open-minded citizens of the world and more open-minded and curious people. And to me, that's more important than becoming a picky eater, honestly. Yeah. Although that's a great benefit, is they're not a picky eater, but opening their mind to the rest of the world and the cultures within it is really the mission of the brand.
I grew up in a restaurant family. And so this was a thing for me, for sure. It was like, you're going to eat what we're eating. My dad's sort of like right hand at one of the restaurants, when we first moved to that area and started working at this one place, I was going to go into dinner with my dad that night. And so she was telling the chef, like, okay, we'll have, chicken fingers or whatever ready. This 8-year-old is coming in. And she said, I knew I had my work cut out for me when my 8-year-old self sat down at the table, and she's like, okay, we have hot dogs and chicken fingers. And I said, no, thank you. I would like to start with escargot. And then I would like this. And please have the salad after, European style. And she was like, oh my God, we're in for it.
I absolutely love that. And I think, honestly, if that's the reason people want global food, to know that their kids are eating well and worldly, great. That's great. If they don't have allergies because of it, even better. But really, like, I love hearing stories like that. I love seeing a kid at a restaurant next to me ordering sushi or something unique, because it's healthier for them. It keeps them, keeps their palate developed. Like, there's no reason they shouldn't enjoy that kind of food. It's funny, my son, who's the picky eater that I mentioned, when we go to this local Italian restaurant, he's, like I said, extremely picky. But we somehow managed to get him engaged with Nona, who owns the Italian restaurant. And Nona convinced him to eat her chicken cutlets and the pasta with the clam sauce or the marinara or whatever it might be. And he did. And I sometimes wonder, maybe it takes an outside influence other than your own parents, but, when you're exposing them to more, maybe they do become more open-minded, because Nona totally convinced him to eat these chicken cutlets and linguine with clams. So I'm hoping he keeps going in that direction.
Count on Nonas to do that.
Nonas are the best.
So tell me about your relationship to unconventionality growing up. Did you already know you were going to be an entrepreneur, or kind of what direction were you heading in, and what were you like as a kid?
Absolutely not. I would never have thought this was my path. In fact, I was very adamant about being in the theater in some capacity, whether it was on stage, which I really did love, or backstage, which I learned about a lot about in college. That was really my passion. And then when I graduated, I went to Northwestern, and when I graduated, I gave that a try. I had wonderful internships. I was the assistant to the director for a wonderful show called Looking Glass Alice, which is the gift that keeps on giving. It keeps coming back at Looking Glass. And then I just realized, I loved writing. I had I thought a great idea for developing an online magazine for women in the city. And I said, if there's anything else I can see myself doing besides the theater, besides acting, which I still support all the time, then let me try to do that. Let me see how that goes. But I did see my parents opened their own practice. I watched my mom run my father's practice, my whole childhood. And what I loved the best about growing up was seeing not only my mom working, but also being a phenomenal mother and being home for us, while also working really hard and building a business and helping support the family. And I always knew I would be doing something similar, in the sense of supporting my family, doing something big. Also, I wanted to be a mom, and I really look up to my mom when it comes to being a great mom and a great business person.
When you started the entrepreneurial journey, did you feel like unconventionality did it set right away, or did you feel like it was a liability at first?
I was a totally unconventional entrepreneur. I had zero experience in business. I did not study business. I studied theater. I had a minor in Italian. I mean, what are you going to do with that, right? So, I think it took some time to be taken seriously. Once I get in a room with someone, they can take me seriously. But, it takes some time to convince somebody that, a theater major, granted from a, wonderful university, but like a theater major with an Italian minor, what are they doing here? Why are they starting this business? What experience do they have? But I think it was very innate in me. I really, really took to it, even the parts of the business I don't love as much as other parts, I still figured it out, the finance side, the marketing side, the, raising money, by the way, that was very unconventional, I think, for a 24-year-old woman with zero experience to be raising money and to do it successfully. So I did not expect to be on this path, but now, I've been on it since I was in my early 20s, and I can't really see anything else for myself.
How did you tackle learning how to raise money?
Took a lot of advice, a lot of advice, both from men and women. I mean, I generally feel like most of my support network and advisors are women, but at the time, especially being very new to this world, I surrounded myself, I think, with the right people that were smarter than I am in certain categories, or more experienced, maybe I should say, that were able to advise and assist. it's not every day that, you're looking to raise a few $100,000 or a few $1 million. And what does that look like? How can you project that out for years? How can you prove that it's a worthwhile investment? Well, you get people to believe in you. And I think it was a lot of conversations. It was a lot of passion. And honestly, there was great growth that backed it up. And I think that's how we did it. And I think just having, again, surrounding yourself with the right people, taking advantage of mentorship and opportunities of that nature. In Chicago, now, it's such a tech hub. It wasn't as much when I started, but I still managed to find the right people that were still kind of in that world. But now, there's no excuse to not be able to take advantage of resources that are provided to you, whether it's panels and discussions through 1871 or other kind of startups or accelerators, or just a great network of people. I'm also a mentor through that. You mentioned it at the beginning when you were introducing me, through the Council of 100 at Northwestern. Take advantage. My advice would be to take advantage of people that are willing to offer you that time, because someone gave it to them, so they are happy to give it to you. And I do the same back. So I just think, to answer your question, just really surrounding yourself with people that can raise you up, help you out, and don't take that for granted.
So what keeps you motivated when things are challenging?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've never believed in anything so much in my entire life than I do with GloBowl. So it is the biggest passion I've ever had. It combines my love of food, kids, bringing the world together. You try sometimes in this crazy world to make a difference, right? We volunteer, we phone bank, we text bank, we do whatever it is for whatever side you're on. You do what you can to make a difference. And sometimes it feels like you're not getting anywhere. I feel so deeply that this business, like setting kids up at 6 months old with exposure to everything, to all of this wonderful culture, these rich foods, this rich culture, these wonderful humans that cook the food, these nonas and these, everybody, right? There's no doubt that is going to help foster these little human go-getters and these little citizens with great open minds who embrace the world instead of cutting it out or thinking less than others. And I think you build kids from the very beginning, you help influence them in the right ways, and they will go on and make a big, big difference. And that motivates me every day, along with my own children, right? I everything I preach, I practice in my own home, and I am proud of my kids and excited to see where things go. And every time I see their little faces, it motivates me to just work harder and harder to make sure that other kids have the ability to, have this open mind and learn, through, whether it's through GloBowl or other means, but that really keeps me going.
I really love that bigger mission of kind of tackling this sense of a limited identity right off the bat.
Absolutely. And the people that are involved with GloBowl all eat, sleep, breathe the same thing. So it just feels really, really good.
Through the lens of your work as an entrepreneur, what kind of conventional narratives just don't check out, or that drive you just bananas when you hear them? Like advice that you hear people given that you're like, no, that's not good advice.
That women can't have it all, that women that's ridiculous. And by the way, all means different things to every single person, right? So all to you might be different than all to me, might be different than all to somebody else, but it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, you have every opportunity to go do that. You could try, so I don't like that. I don't like, being bucketed as, a mom or an entrepreneur or a founder, or, that I can't be on a plane every other week to get this done. Do I miss my kids? Does it sometimes hurt, to be away? But that doesn't make me a bad mom, and it doesn't make me a bad entrepreneur. I think it makes me who I am, which I actually think is a good mom, and I think is a great founder. And it excites me that what I get to do is for my kids ultimately. So even in the pangs of missing them when I'm traveling, I still know it's for the greater good. But there's no reason why anyone should be bucketed into, a stereotype or into one place when we can do whatever it is that we want to do.
The narratives around women in business travel are a thing.
Yes, it is a thing.
It's a whole thing. And in ways that men would never be questioned, ever.
Never in a million years. Never in a million years. I mentioned, if you talk to someone at an airport, you're having a glass of wine at the airport bar, whatever it is, and you mention, oh yeah, my kid, look, where are your kids? Well, I have work. I'm meeting with an investor. I'm doing a pitch. I'm doing this. What do you mean? Where are your kids? They're at home with their father. That's, and my parents. And that's what it takes. It's a support network, right? I have a wonderful support network, but absolutely, like, why is someone looking at me like, where are your kids? It's just mind boggling in today's day and age that is even a question. But yeah, women, business traveler. Yes, there's a lot around it.
That could be a whole other thing.
It could. Another episode.
So for you, what is the pie in the sky for GloBowl? What's the biggest possible thing you can imagine doing with it?
I have so many plans for this business. I think, just the idea, and if you've seen the branding, and if you haven't, check it out online, because the brand just lends itself. You could see that the culture just kind of immersed in the branding and the colors and the background of the map behind everything. I think it lends itself to a lot of different parts of the business, right? So we're a food company, we're a CPG brand, but this lends itself to a cookbook, like teaching kids how to cook and get into the kitchen, right? Or, some sort of like YouTube station, teaching kids how to cook. There's nothing greater. I mean, one of my favorite memories is being in the kitchen with my mom or my aunt or my grandma. This is how traditions are passed on. I was interviewing, we have a web series called The Global Table. And this is also another kind of offshoot of the brand. It's a web series where we interview moms from around the world to discuss their family traditions, to talk about the culture of their food. How are they introducing it to their kids? So we were talking to a woman in Syria. She's a recipe developer in Syria who can't go back to her homeland. She doesn't know if her daughter ever will, right? So she keeps her heritage, her family, her everything alive through food. I mean, that's powerful, powerful stuff. So there's just so much there when it comes to food. It's not just something you eat. Tell me, like, when you taste matzo ball soup or you taste something from your childhood, does it not make you just completely reminiscent of wonderful times in childhood? Food, there's so much more to food than just eating. So I see a lot of different things for this business. And ultimately, I mean, I would love to see this brand be, a huge baby food brand that every single baby has access to. And I would like to make sure of that. And as we get further along and we're a bigger company, it would be a huge initiative to make sure we can get this food to kids all over, whether, they can afford it or not. We want to make sure we get this in their hands, because not only is it good for them and it's nutrient dense and really healthy, which is the baseline of what all baby food should be, but let's get their minds going. Let's get them learning about the world. And that's extremely important to us.
What do you wish more people knew about the work that you do, or narratives around being an entrepreneur?
What do I wish people knew about being an entrepreneur? Just because someone's a founder or a CEO, right, it doesn't mean it's easy. Like sometimes you look at somebody in the C-suite and like they've got it easy, they worked really hard, and now they have a whole team that's working for them. It's not quite like that when you're an entrepreneur and you're, a startup founder. You may have the title of CEO, but the CEO is also the COO, and they're also the assistant, and they're also the intern, and they're also the operations director, and they're everything. So obviously, as you grow, you bring in people that know parts of that business better than you do. But until you get to that point, you've got a very worn out founder who probably lacks sleep or showers, but still has that strong passion. But be nice when people look tired when they're building a new company.
Good advice. All right. Well, what's next for you and for GloBowl?
I just building this every single day. We're really lucky. We found a manufacturer of the food. We were cooking it ourselves. We've only been around for 9 months, and a lot of companies still cook it themselves. So to be able to have gotten a manufacturer so quickly is really, really special. And so they'll be producing starting in the next month. And then after that, it's honestly getting it on the shelves and selling it through our website. But we have a lot of really great retail interest. So we have a lot of confidence that, by the end of the year, this will be on a lot of store shelves, both in Chicago and beyond. I'm just thrilled by the concept of just knowing kids are eating well and enjoying it and learning, because that, like I said, that QR code on the back, I mean, we're going to have this whole, I don't know if have you ever seen the Wild Kratts?
No.
So it's a show for kids, but it's amazing. It's half animated, and then basically like the animation lends itself to these two brothers like diving into the ocean or into outer space and exploring animals and the environment and all of that. And we have a similar plan for these videos because kids love that kind of animation. So having our little Globie is what we call him, this little Globie, teaching them about the world. So I'm just so excited for kids to have this new character in their lives, teaching them about the world, even before they go to school, even because we don't know everything. Parents don't know everything, but little Globie will, because we're going to make sure we consult with the right people to make sure Globie is smart, educated, and accurate. So I'm very, very, very excited about that part of it too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck with all of this. We'll be looking for Globie, following everything Globie says. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Unconventional with Amy Guth. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode, and find me at Amy Guth on social media. Thanks so much, and let's meet right back here next time.